Hi guys. So recently I did a video all about 5 tropes that I do not like in books, and today, to be a little more on the positive side, I'm going to be talking about 5 tropes that I love in books. Just like in that video, I actually have more than 5 tropes that I could talk about, but to keep the video from being super long, I'm only going to talk about 5, but if you guys really like the video, I'd be happy to do more tropes that I dislike and that I like. Okay, so the first trope that I absolutely love for anyone that's watched my channel is no surprise. I talk about it constantly. I love this trope, and that would be assassins. I don't quite know why I love assassins so much in books. I think it has something to do with the inherent curiosity that people have for the characters they're reading about, and it's so amplified when it's about an assassin because assassins just have an air of mystery and intrigue, and it's like, I want to know more about this person. And usually assassins either have to be very, well, I would imagine they're really stealthy, but they usually know a lot about like poisons, or they're really good with weapons, or they're really good with like certain kinds of magic and stuff. And who doesn't want all of those things? Like, who doesn't want to be super awesome with knives and be able to like, just who doesn't want to be that cool? Next up, I don't quite know if this is considered a trope. It's kind of a theme, I think, and I don't see it very often in books, but when I do, I love it. It's one of the main reasons I love the Witcher series, and that would be when there's a really strong, almost parental type relationship between two characters. It could actually just be that there are parental figures in the books that are great, or it could be when there's a character that is fatherly or motherly towards another character and they just have this really strong bond. I love that. I feel in books often that we show tumultuous pasts that are stemmed from the fact that people have bad relationships with their parents, and everybody's always talking about bad relationships with their parents. And at the end of the day, I love my parents. Aside from my husband, I love my parents more than anybody else in the world. I know, of course, that that is not the case for every person, but for me, I just don't see enough of really strong, happy relationships between people that are somewhat parent-like. I don't see that very often, and I really love it because, of course, people build friendships, and of course people have romantic interests, but to build that kind of a relationship between people, I just think it's a different kind of love, and I think it's one of the most beautiful kinds. The next trope that I absolutely, whoa, sorry, I totally just like drooled all over myself. That was weird. Sorry, the next trope that I absolutely love is when anytime I see this in a synopsis or you say these words, they are total buzzwords for me, and that would be some form of unintended heir. It doesn't even need to necessarily be the heir to a kingdom, although I am such a sucker for that in particular, but it can be just the heir to something. I think that there's something about that trope that for me, it shows what people are capable of, even if it's not something we can relate to, because let's be real, most of us are not finding out that we're gonna be like a princess. But there are often times in life where you realize you're gonna have to step forward and do something. You have to step up and get something accomplished that maybe you didn't think you could, or you didn't initially want to, and often there's obstacles in the way, but you work through them, and in doing so, you like find a part of yourself that you didn't think you had. It ends up sounding so cheesy, but it's just a story in and of itself. It just kind of writes itself out all on its own, and I love it. The next trope that I adore is the rags to riches trope. I think I have somewhat of a personal connection with this, not because I started from poverty, because I am very fortunate. I've always been raised in a middle-class family, so I'm not saying that I relate to that myself, but my father grew up in total poverty, and I love my dad. Like I said earlier, I love my parents. So my dad came from poverty, and he worked so hard in his life, and when I see that in books, I think I just feel this like little twinkle of like, it's like dad. I also have a mother whose parents, my grandparents, are from Cuba, and so my mom is the daughter of an immigrant family, and so I think, you know, similar to her situation where she had a very different life than maybe somebody whose family wasn't immigrants. And while it's not quite exactly the same as rags to riches, I think both of my parents have some of the same themes in their lives that you find in rags to riches stories, and I just think that they're so empowering and inspirational. And while I do consider myself very blessed, I think I and many other people, even if you've grown up in a middle class family or even an upper class family, everybody can relate to feeling put down because they don't have as much as someone else. I've had friends before say things to me or do things to me that aren't particularly nice because I just don't have as much as they do, or I don't have as much money as they do. And when people experience that, it's terrible. So when you see it in a story and you're like, hey, I can totally relate to that. That sucks when that happens, and you get riled up because you feel for them, you feel like you can step into their shoes and imagine what that kind of a life is like. And if the character is just so far into poverty that it's something that we can't relate to whatsoever because they're living on the streets or they're homeless or something like that, I do think that reading about somebody like that helps develop a healthy level of empathy, because in our own world there are so many people that have so much less than we do. Reading is a luxury, and there are some people that are just trying to survive, and that's real. Even if it takes place in a fantasy book, or it doesn't have to be fantasy, but even if that theme is in a book, that's a reflection of our own world, and I think that helps us recognize things that we might not even think about in our day-to-day lives. Now for the last trope that I love, it feels kind of weird to go from touchy-feely stuff to this one, but I absolutely love, it's just like, this political intrigue. It doesn't even really need to be political, it just needs to be some kind of scheming, right? Just like somebody over here in the corner, like plotting out their master plan. I think it's so fantastic. To me, it shows a level of decision on the author's part and planning. Like, we need to set up all the stuff for this to work out, because you can't have political intrigue just pull it out of your butt. You can't just write that out of nowhere. You have to set it up, you have to show little clues, and I just think it's so great when you get to the big reveal, or you see the effects of what this person's been shooting for the whole time, and you're like, whoa, and then when you go back and look, you're like, wow, it's been there the entire time. It's one of the reasons that I love, not to give away any spoilers, but it's one of the reasons I love Sanderson's books so much, because when you get to the end and you're like, oh, like some of the things that have been right in your face the whole time and you just didn't see them and you did not anticipate that they were going to happen, but then when you look back, you're like, oh, all the way back in the first book, he's been thinking about this since the first one. I also think that intrigue is one of the few things that can easily make a book really good to reread, because then you see things that you did not see before. And also, it's so much fun to talk about books that have lots of intrigue in them, because if you're reading them side by side with another person, your buddy reading, you can compare and be like, wait, do you think that meant something? Or if they're reading it after you, you can be like, so did you at all think that that was gonna happen? Anyway, that's it for the 5 tropes that I absolutely love in books. Unlike the one where I talked about tropes I don't like, I'm feeling very happy now. With the other one, I felt very riled up and angry and bitter because I was just complaining the whole time. But this one, it's nice to reflect on why you like books and why you love certain things in books. It lifts your spirits. Let me know what your guys' favorite tropes are in books, and if you also really like any of the tropes that I mentioned. But anyway, if you liked the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Click the little bell icon so you get notified when I post new videos, and check out some more of my videos right over here. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.